Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Australia's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands, waterways and skies across Australia from where you are listening from. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to other Aboriginal people listening in today. I'm broadcasting today from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And joining me is Kathryn Backholer. And I forgot to check, Kathryn, before we started. Is it Professor? What's your fancy title too?
The fancy title is Associate Professor, but I'm happy to go by Kathryn.
It's very fancy. I think you use it where you can. So we might start off with get Kathryn to introduce herself briefly and talk about the kind of current research and work. Give us a bit of an intro on what you do.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my name is Kathryn Backholer. I'm at Deakin University, where I'm an Associate Director of the Global Obesity Centre there. So we sit within the Institute for Health Transformation at Deakin. And my research and my team's research really focuses on population food policy, and really with a thread of equity that runs through everything we do, whether that be explicitly or by focusing on specific topics or specific policies that are likely to have a particularly equitable impact. So hence the focus on food marketing.
Excellent. Yes, because it's something that impacts us all, isn't it? Food marketing.
That's
so
right.
And that's what, I mean, people watching will know that this is very much the time of year that Parents Voice focuses on this work, with Fame and Shame coming up next week. So how would you kind of describe, define unhealthy food marketing? Kind of how prevalent is it out there and how is it impacting children?
Yeah, so food marketing can take many different forms. So whether that be through advertising online, for example, it might be outside on billboards or on television, sponsorship. So both whether you go to your junior community club or at the elite level, but also in retail environments. So the end of aisle displays or what's placed at children's eye level, this is all food marketing. And it's everywhere in our children's lives. You know, just online, the latest study said, estimated that children see on average 7.4 unhealthy food advertisements every hour they're online. We know that sporting clubs, 1 in 3 sporting clubs across Victoria accept unhealthy food sponsorship from large multinational corporations. So it's everywhere. It's economic exploitation, and we know it works because food companies spend huge amounts of money on it every year. And there's really good also scientific evidence to say that it influences purchasing, it influences consumption and total energy intake. So we know it works.
Yeah. I always say that to people when they say, how do you know it works? I'm like, these companies aren't in the business of wasting their money. We know that targeting kids has impact. But as you said, there is also scientific research that shows the impacts on the consumption of consumption levels and choices that kids and families make.
Yeah, that's right. And not just on the immediate impacts for the marketed product, but it increases total energy intake, which means it influences weight gain over time as well.
Yeah. Okay. And so over the pandemic, how is this type of marketing involved, and what sort of effect has that had?
So, these large transnational corporations have really pivoted really quickly to capitalize on the pandemic. I mean, we see this with all sorts of marketing, whether it be greenwashing, pinkwashing, we see this COVID washing as well. So we saw this with the large multinational corporations in Australia through digital platforms. We saw that, not surprisingly, food delivery companies, alcohol delivery companies were most likely to post online, and what they usually drew on were these messages around community support. So we're all in this together, and donating, for example, Domino's donated pizzas to essential healthcare workers. And then what they do is they advertise that everywhere to show, look at what we're doing for the community. We're really helping out. And then the other really prominent theme was around isolation activity. So having engaging, fun sort of activities that people could do under the guise of an unhealthy food brand.
Yeah, I think we saw a few particularly there was quite a few nominated actually last year in Fame and Shame around unhealthy food companies positioning their unhealthy food as like an essential snack while you're staying safe at home, playing video games or whatever. Like they were kind of that, and to me there was like that full connection between the sedentary behavior and the unhealthy food, and then it's marketed to people who are already watching a screen because it's all digital. It's kind of like it was just such a triple whammy, really.
Oh yeah, and we know that excess weight is a risk factor for severe forms of COVID, so hospitalisation and mechanical ventilation, and it's just in contrast to this whole building back better from COVID. If we want to build back better, we need to build back better in terms of all the environments in which we're exposed to, and that includes not being exposed to so much unhealthy food marketing, which is because diets are one of the key risk factors for death and disease in Australia and globally. So we really need to make our food environment supportive of healthy choices.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the rise of apps. We had an example recently where we've lodged a complaint on behalf of a parent to the Ad Standards Board, where it was a promotion between Basketball Victoria and McDonald's that was sent out to children, so juniors that had registered for their local basketball team to play as a player. But it was the email was just one full ad for Macca's to basically download and register for the app for the child to do that. And that they would get a free Big Mac. So it was like multiple levels where it was wrong. Like a Big Mac isn't even a suitable food, let alone other foods that McDonald's sells, but it was worse,
Yeah.
But also that connection between trying to get children to sign up and give their personal information away via the app, which I think we seem to be seeing more and more of that.
And especially online as well. Like this is about, these social media companies gathering data on children, and then they sell that to all sorts of companies, including junk food companies, so that they can, market their products in a more targeted way. And I mean, I think sports sponsorship is such an issue. Our kids are just, our young kids from such a young age are exposed to this kind of marketing, and we know that sponsorship deals are reciprocated. So that might be through signage or the vouchers or signage on uniforms, and kids are just, it's normalized in society.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sorry, I was thinking about the personal data and the fact that we don't even as adults, we don't think about it. And every year as we're preparing for Fame and Shame, we're researching all the ads that have been nominated and seeing where they were placed online and things. And then for weeks afterwards, all my targeted ads are unhealthy food.
Yeah.
And I just think about my own digital footprint and then expand that to children who don't have even the basic understanding of how to kind of sort that through and why they're being targeted by these companies.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's really hard for parents to understand what their kids are being exposed to, because as a parent, you're not over your child's shoulder every second that they're on the internet. And so what you're exposed to is actually quite different to what your child's exposed to. So, we've seen in our research that concern for unhealthy food advertising through digital devices, the concern's actually less than what, parents are more concerned about the marketing outside and in retail spaces than they are in digital, on digital platforms, even though the marketing is more engaging, more targeted on digital platforms. And that's because it's really hard to get a sense of what their children are even exposed to.
Absolutely. And I think I wouldn't be alone. I think in my experience this year watching things, I feel like I've watched way more sport online, like on TV rather, than I would normally, particularly with the Olympics and all of those sorts of things. Sitting there and just with your kids and like a constant, all of the ads are unhealthy food marketing. And if they're not that, they're gambling or alcohol, it's not like they're any better.
Yeah.
And I imagine that our exposure to kind of regular TV, so to speak, is declining, but I was still quite shocked at how much was still on there, and how much, those things that kids would watch, like live sporting events, just completely saturated.
Yeah.
Ads.
Yeah. I mean, you saw it at the Olympics was a perfect example. So Coca-Cola, longest standing sponsor of the Olympic Organising Committee, so 97 years, and they've just signed up another 20-year deal. it was in the Olympic torch relay. It was player sponsors, so that you had players, promoting drinking Coca-Cola. But if that's not enough, Channel 7 signed a deal with McDonald's, and the deal was that McDonald's in every single ad break had to show a Big Mac. So these, we're locked down, families are sitting there watching the Olympics, and they're just inundated by Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and, whatever else was on there as well. But I think the Olympics was, a really good example of that really close tie between unhealthy food and sport.
And we saw earlier in the year that, Cristiano Ronaldo demonstrated the value to Coca-Cola of all of those placements by removing the Coca-Cola and saying to people they should drink water. And there was a massive drop in the value of Coca-Cola's, in the valuation of their business by that simple mechanism. I'm sure that it's recovered since, but to me, it was such a clear example of how much it's worth to these companies, all of these placements and sponsorship deals.
Yeah, well, I think it wiped $4 million off the share market soon after it happened. And yeah, as you say, it's probably come back up. But what a great, role model that you can. I mean, he's also pretty famous, so he can kind of do that, and he'd probably still have sponsors lining up for him. But I think there was a couple of cricketers that did it in Australia recently as well. So hopefully that'll spark some kind of momentum among sports stars, because kids look up to these sports stars. They're their heroes, and if they see them promoting Coca-Cola and telling them to drink Coca-Cola, then that's what they're going to believe and see as a norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was some Australian cricketers. So I'm not a big cricketer. David Warner, I think it was, he removed them before the press conference started, and I think he referenced Cristiano Ronaldo. But the records I saw, apparently someone put them back up.
Oh, right.
So which again shows the power. They weren't willing to just let it go for one press conference. It was back up. Getting back to digital though, so you were saying that parents, they're the least concerned about digital, but I think that potentially they should be the most concerned, because as you said, parents aren't seeing the same things. We don't realize what our kids are really exposed to in that space in the ways we do in other environments. So what can parents do about that? What should they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, firstly, mobilising parents to support protections for children, so through government policy. So I think we absolutely need, we need our digital environments defined by, gatekeepers who are there to protect society and protect children, which is our government. It's not by, these transnational corporations. They're not there to set up healthy online environments. They're there to make a profit. So I think making a noise about this and really getting behind policy to support policy change, with your vote for policy change for protection of children online and in all different environments. And basically, we need a ban on unhealthy food marketing online. So the UK has just announced a ban. It should start at the start of 2023, where they'll ban all paid for advertising. So publishers cannot, or advertisers cannot pay for unhealthy food advertising online. So that'll be completely banned in the UK, and we need to go down that track.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely one of the key pushes from our Fame and Shame every year, is just calling out how poorly we're served by the current self-regulatory system that we have here in Australia, and calling government to set a better standard, really. And particularly in this digital space where it's so opaque to everyone except the person seeing the ad.
Yeah, and we know the industry standards don't work. We've shown that in Australia. We've shown it time and time again that the industry codes do not protect children, and we need governments to step up and take action if we're serious about this. Yeah,
absolutely. And do you think, so is the UK one of the better examples of the moves that they're making there?
It's a world first in the UK. So there's some caveats around it, I think, in that it doesn't stop. So a brand can still, so Coca-Cola or McDonald's, a brand can still make an advertisement on their own homepage, and users can jump on board, and that can be virally spread. And McDonald's can still advertise its golden arches absolutely everywhere, but they can't pay for advertising for its food products, for example. So there's caveats, but it's a step in the right direction. It's a first of its kind in the world, and hopefully we'll see more countries follow.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds amazing. I'm getting all tingly at the idea of like that we could get a similar thing here. Though, you know, I mean, I feel like we're so many steps behind them, but we're all working in the same direction though to try and get government to do better here.
Well, I think we do a really good job in advocacy. In terms of policy, I think we're miles behind. You know, we don't even protect children on TV well enough, let alone through the digital environment where it's so much more complex than all the other media and settings that we can regulate unhealthy food marketing in. So we've got a long way to go in Australia, but we've got these excellent organisations who, you know, are advocating and really trying to push this across the policy agenda, and that's what we definitely need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do our best. And for everyone listening, there's a whole lot of organisations that Kathryn works with, quite a few of them, lending her time. But there's quite a number of organisations that are pushing this, and we're all kind of working in the same direction where we can. I'll remind anyone watching that they can ask questions. Feel free to put them in the Facebook chat for Kathryn. Any sort of questions you might have about unhealthy food marketing to children on any of the kind of different spectrums. Yes, we'll check in on that in a couple of minutes. Just thinking, how much of your research do you have? Are there any? So what are you researching at the moment? Do you have some really interesting findings from the last kind of year or so that you want to share?
Yeah, so a couple of studies worth mentioning, just because I think it highlights the problem in such a stark way. So one of the areas we're looking at is new media platforms. So we've looked at TikTok. So it's a video sharing platform for those who aren't aware of it. And I think what we did was we looked at the top brands and companies, unhealthy food brands and companies, and how they're using TikTok. And what we found is that they're really only now starting to use TikTok as a marketing platform. And what they have on TikTok is these hashtag challenges. So a company can put out a hashtag challenge, and then the idea is that everyday users, take that hashtag challenge and they create their own video. But what it has in there is all the branding and products or whatever else it might be that the brand puts up. And the starkest finding out of this study was that the vast majority of single TikTok challenges, so a single hashtag challenge, was viewed over 1 billion times on the internet. So I think that just shows, you know, the reach of this kind of advertising on some of these social media platforms. We had one single challenge, so the collective videos viewed over 100 billion times. So it's just huge. We're also looking at the ways, like, what's the future hold for food marketing. So we analysed, you know, a huge amount of industry reports to look at how they're using artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. And that just blows your mind what they're doing. You know, robots, when you walk into a KFC, robot scans your face and detects what kind of mood you're in, and based on your age and your sex, and then based on that, it reshuffles the menu items in a certain order so that what you're most likely to choose is at the front. And then you purchase your food and you pay through face recognition technology. Okay. You know, so that was quite really interesting just to see what's the future hold. And I think we'll start to see even more engaging techniques and these sort of what we call dark nudges in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we first started the bother boards category a few years ago, it was that first kind of start of that interactive billboards idea. And I can imagine them just getting even more with the addition of AI.
Yeah.
Well, the sky's the limit really about what they could do there.
Yeah, and a lot of the advertising we're seeing online now also, it's not just an advertisement. You used to have an advertisement online, and the way it's progressed is now there's the advertisement, but there's a buy button. So you can see the advertisement, you just click buy and it takes you straight through a store and you can buy your Big Mac or whatever it might be. So it's connecting people with much more convenience and much more quickly through from an advertisement all the way through to purchase right now sort of mechanism. So I think we're just, the way the advertising landscape's heading is it's just about making it easier and easier and more engaging for people to be wrapped up in this advertising.
Yeah. Have you done much research around influencers?
Only by way of these hashtag challenges. So these companies, one of the strategies in which they get the message out, so any user can promote their video, but they also pay influencers to also, create videos that goes and have them at the top of the feed, whether that be on Instagram or TikTok, whatever it might be. There's definitely a huge use of influencers, and that's where you start to see. There was a study out of the US again, in terms of the views of influencers in advertising unhealthy food brands. It was up in the millions and billions.
Well, I mean, we know, I could only assume the power of that sort of advertising, because that trust, it's some people consider these influencers like a friend, like a trusted source of information. Such a powerful way for advertising to reach kids too.
Yeah, and where you see it, which I think is really worrying, is in the tobacco and e-cigarette field as well. So, it's not just food, it's across all these different commodities and services. And our kids are exposed to this when they jump online. And this is why we need to protect children. We need to have an environment where it's safe for them to go online, where their data isn't harvested every time they click a button online, how long they last on a web page. It should just be a safe environment, and putting, the rights of a child first, and that is the right to be able to use digital online platforms in a way that's safe and secure for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so can you share what you're working on now? Is it top secret?
So no, nothing's top secret. One of the key projects we're looking at is, so we've looked at a lot of how industry is using artificial intelligence to market their products to us. And we're looking at how we can use artificial intelligence, machine learning, to monitor the types of advertising that they have. So we're building an artificial intelligence system that can automatically detect unhealthy food advertising. And the idea is that we can collect, footage on the internet, so people surfing the internet, and we can run that through our artificial intelligence system. And ordinarily that would take about 12 months to watch all this footage and code it all. And the idea is that you just run it through this AI system, and you can get a really good understanding really quickly of what kids are exposed to. We're going to be using it soon in the UK, because they've just implemented, they haven't implemented, they're going to implement this policy online that we spoke about earlier. And so we're working with some researchers in the UK to make sure that we can get some baseline data and be able to evaluate that policy. And then we've got some technology where we've got glasses, and we'll be able to put those on children, where we can record the world through the eyes of a child. So we literally can see what kind of advertising do kids see? Do they engage with it? Do their eyes see the advertising? Do their eyes dilate when they see that advertising? But through the eyes of the child, what is the kinds of advertising they see? How much do they see across all different media and settings? And how much do they engage with that advertising? So we hope that can be used, for advocacy efforts, so we can really highlight the problem in a much more precise way. And then also, if we do ever get any policy in place, we've got a mechanism for holding these industries accountable.
Absolutely. I like the idea of using the technology for good. And it actually feeds quite nicely into a question we have, which is, do you think is there a way that we can use digital marketing for good, like for health promotion, and what would that look like?
So I think absolutely we can. It's just that the companies that produce these healthy products don't have the budgets of these multinational corporations, which is a real problem. And I think it's also about changing these cultural norms around different foods as well. So at the moment, unhealthy foods are so embedded as normal foods in our diets and in society, because they are everywhere in our lives. And so kids are more likely to engage with advertisements with a burger or fries and things like that, versus an advertisement for an apple or a banana. But I think so part of it's social norms, and then part of it is just having the budgets. These companies spend millions and billions of dollars every single year advertising, but we need to start to change that. And then absolutely, I think we should be doing more advertising for healthy foods and healthy diets.
Absolutely. There was actually a couple of examples this year in the fame category of fame and shame of different companies using, actually, I think there was a TikTok ad, like a TikTok campaign from Netball New South Wales, I think, and a couple of others that had used digital placements.
And I think the digital is a good way to go, because you can do it with low cost. you can, it's, you know, if you can make it engaging enough and you can get that sort of spread through the internet, you can do your advertising with relatively low cost. The challenge is getting the uptake and the engagement that these big companies do with their unhealthy food advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other question is, was kind of wondering about how supportive like general parents are. So it's one thing for a group of concerned citizens to make a noise, but in the majority of the population, do parents really care enough about this issue? Like, is advertising their biggest battle day to day? And is there any research that digs into that?
So it depends on the setting in media. I think parents with young children are more concerned about some of the retail marketing, because they take their kids to the supermarket and their kids, you know, ask for things, and, you know, it's what's called pester power. As I said, in the digital space, parents are less concerned. So, you know, I agree, we do need to do more to mobilize parents in a way that doesn't just get those that are already concerned on board. And that's why we hope that some of our research, where we can see some of these outrageous examples and, you know, really quantify the way in which children are exposed to unhealthy food marketing and get that out there in the public domain, will get parents, you know, concerned about this. And parents who are not aware of how much advertising their children see, we can research that and put it out there in the public domain so that parents can be concerned. But I think we need to do a lot around, you know, getting parents concerned, and because it is an area that they should be concerned about. Unhealthy diet's key risk factor for disease and death, as I said, in Australia and globally, and our marketing environments just are completely at odds with that.
Yes, definitely. And it is something we often talk at Parents' Voice. This is very buzzwordy, but, you know, talking about who our audience is when we're communicating, and obviously we're trying to influence government to create change. But there's always a kind of secondary parent audience, because we know there's a big group out there that are sitting in the middle, that are waiting to be persuaded one way or the other. And we, you know, look to kind of get them to join in, mobilize with us as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, parents are some of the busiest people in our community,
yep.
and hard to connect with at times as well. So there's multiple challenges, but there is definitely work being done, looked at being done across this space, I think, to try and get more of the population, not just parents, concerned about this issue.
Yeah, and that's where I think media has a role to play as well. You know, I'm a parent myself, and life's busy, and, you know, I wouldn't be digging into academic research if I wasn't an academic. You know, that we need to make it available for your everyday busy person, and getting it out in the media as well, and just highlighting the problem.
Excellent. Well, I think we've pretty much reached almost the end of our session today. It goes quickly, these half chats. And so, Kathryn, is there anything that you want to direct parents towards? Are you guys recruiting for a study or anything? Is there anything you'd like parents to link into?
Not at the moment. I mean, the Fame and Shame Awards are pretty good. Tune into those when they come on. There's your plug, Alice. No, just, you know, we'll get our research out as we go, and just keep an eye out for what's in the media, and and speak to your local politician about your local sports clubs and the sponsorship deals that they have. And I think there are ways to make a difference locally. It's hard to influence digital advertising, but you can certainly make some noise at your local football, netball club, for example, and see if we can have more clubs moving to healthy sponsorship models.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's anyone who's watching today who has burning issues like that but isn't quite sure how to approach them, feel free to send us an email here at Parents' Voice, and we can try and point you in the right direction. And we will share the amazing research that Kathryn and her team put out when it comes out.
Yep. And we've got some things I can send to you as well, Alex, Alice, to put in the newsletter. Yeah.
Excellent. So the next newsletter will include a link to this video, just in case someone wants to watch it again, and to the things that Kathryn and her team have put out recently. And there's a whole lot of interesting research in there. And of course, don't forget that Fame and Shame, Kathryn gave us a quick plug there. It's next week on Tuesday. And if you can come and join us where we announce the winners, it'll be at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, and it'll be broadcast online, so you can join from anywhere in Australia or the world, I suppose. And Evie will put the RSVP link in the Facebook comments, so you can all click straight through and RSVP, and we'll send you the direct event link early next week or late this week. So thank you, Kathryn, so much for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
It's been great. I always enjoy all these chats, but I think unhealthy food marketing is such a core thing, a core piece of Parents' Voice work, that it's been great to chat to you about all the latest in that space. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye. Thank you.